Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Next Level Humanity podcast, Masters Unplugged. I have a dear friend here, Mehvish. Her name very similar to my name. Mehvish. Welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, lovely to have you. And I feel so inspired about learning more about socially inspired. So my first question will be, what personal experiences and insights led you to create socially inspired?
So, socially inspired really was born out of my life and from the experiences that I've had from growing up to, my life, my qualifications, sort of my studying period, and then to my career. And it got to a point where I realized actually all of these little dots, they actually mean something. And it's through that sort of reflection and this many years of trying to explore what is my purpose. Like there's more to life to what I'm doing.
So you
And
solved your puzzle.
I solved my puzzle, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Yeah, you solved your
It
puzzle.
felt right because, when I talk about sort of my life is, my mum's a single mum. She didn't know how to speak English. She came to the UK when she was, I think about 16. She got arranged marriage, came to the UK, and the relationship didn't work out. So my mum decided to divorce my dad and she had to work.
How old were you?
I must have been around 10.
10.
And when I was really understanding what was happening, and then I realized at that point that of course my mum had to find work, but she didn't know how to speak English. And she started working in care homes with a limited of English sort of understanding that she had at that time. And then she ended up working for a national retail store. So she was able to, improve her English to a point where she was able to communicate. And then she secured a job. It was a good, decent job. However, there was always problems she was experiencing, and it's because she wasn't being understood. And I remember being in the background and helping her with the communication and writing emails, writing letters, and I was always trying to support her within the workplace. But then I also realized that I was doing it within sort of living, contacting maybe if there's something's happened with the council or with utility bills. I was there sort of supporting her with those day to day, and that kind of continued. So ultimately, Socially Inspired is a consultancy. We support organizations to be more socially conscious. And our logo or our motto is human first, systems that serve, cultures that care, because ultimately that's the focus. How do we take care of our employees? How do we become more socially conscious? Because we do have a responsibility. It's not just about profit. So it originated from that and the many experiences I've had since then.
Yeah, I love it. It is very inspiring because I come from an entrepreneurial background as well, and being an entrepreneur, I think my gift have been, understanding the importance of mission and understanding the importance of human.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of the whole capitalist system, although I am in it as an investor and all that. But sometimes you see that, when companies are too profit focused and they forget about humans, basically. It's just it goes nuts. So that's why I when I first learned about your platform and your company, I was very inspired. Because I am personally very much aligned with what you're trying to do. I totally agree. And at the end of the day, it's very interesting, but like, we're all humans and we are after meaning. And we just want to be fulfilled. It's never about the money. It's never about the profit. It's always, it comes down to communication, human to human relationship, that touch, and we're all looking for fulfillment. So let's not forget that.
What's that saying? We come into the world with nothing, we go out with nothing. And, I think about, and I'd mentioned this, like the first time we physically met in person, and I'd mentioned how, I knew of your work a few years ago, and it was only a few years ago I really started questioning that what I'm feeling and experiencing, is there something here? Do I really need to follow this? And it was only when I started sort of coming across people like yourself, and I realized actually it isn't about how much you achieve from a material perspective. It is about doing something that when the time comes and you have to leave, you know that you've left and you've done the best you can. And I think that's the stage that I'm at. And it was nice to have that moment when I created the business. I'll be honest,
Very inspiring. Very
it will never
inspiring.
go away.
And in a big message. I mean, I think the message of my life is, if you have lived, just like you said, if you have lived a meaningful life, if you have served humanity and you have done some work that is meaningful, then you die in peace. But if you haven't done that, if you have done some business and earned money and had some profits, but it wasn't something truly meaningful, then I see people getting really sick, I think, in their head, and they don't want to leave, and they get interested into how we can live longer, and there are all these especially in the X platform, maybe you've seen like don't die, people trying not to die, and I'm like, that is so nonsense. It's just like saying I lived such a meaningless life that I don't want to die. Because when you do meaning, it's like you're like, now I can die. It's fine because I did it. I did something meaningful, and that's sad. I mean, especially in the tech world, startup world, people getting rich very quickly, earning a lot of money, but not doing something meaningful, and they get, I think, crazy, and they're like, let's not die, because. I mean, if you did something meaningful, you would be okay to die. That means you haven't done anything meaningful. So sad.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's where society. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you
There's
see
a
one
crack.
side, because you see one side where you have a lot of people that are of that mindset that actually want to make money quick, want to sort of see the bank balance go up, and they want to be celebrities. They want to have that, sort of be put on a pedestal. But then I also feel that there's this other group of people that really want to look at humanity, and over the years I've seen that
those people
sense
are
of
healthy.
community. They are
Those
much
people are
healthy, and they're healthy from inside out rather
because
than
the
outside.
other is, I mean, I sometimes tell to my friends, crackhead. That is a crack because it's cracked. It's like
that makes sense.
It's empty. It's like if you're after the money, it's just so shallow, and
it can go like that, can't it?
And there is the saying, some people are. I'm so sad that some people are only rich. They're so poor that the only thing they have is money. Some people are so poor that the only thing they have is money. We're totally connected on that. At what moment did you realize that this was more than a project and that needed to become a real platform?
So I mentioned earlier about how I helped my mom. Because of my natural way of sort of being helpful, at a young age, so I was about 15, I was asked to work. My mom actually said, you should work in the Citizens Advice Bureau. And Citizens Advice Bureau are basically, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a free service available to those that need advice. Anything from debt advice to legal advice to just signpost. And and the employment liability insurance didn't cover me because I was so young. But that set me on the track of to study as a lawyer. So I became a lawyer. I studied to be a lawyer. I didn't practice. And again, through that experience, I realized actually law is black and white. People are not black and white. We're different.
And there's a gray.
There's a grey. And I also realised through the legal system, people were being harmed. So through my family experience, my lived experience, I saw the society was harming people. Then through the legal system, I was seeing the legal system was harming people. Then I fell into HR, the human resources profession. And then I was in the workplace and I became a HR professional and spent about 18 years as a HR professional. And again, in the workplace, I was seeing where people were not being supported, which brings me back to that connection with my, with my mum and what I was seeing over the years. And the turning point was COVID, because here in the UK, well, everywhere we had COVID, there was an outbreak. I worked for the NHS here in the UK. I was a senior leader. I was, of course, employed. I was at the top of my game in terms of organizational. So I led, my background is HR, but I moved into organizational change. So culture, leadership, values and behaviors, equality, diversity and inclusion, all of that was part of my makeup and my background. And COVID hit. We were in the National Health Service. A lot of people were unfortunately, in challenging times. And I saw firsthand it was having on our healthcare workers. But also, and I don't know if you recall, but when everything happened here in the UK, we had a huge announcement and evidence where people from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic background were at a high risk of COVID.
Yeah, we received emails and messages.
And which was even more distraught and sort of upsetting was that people from the BME background in the workplace, in NHS settings, weren't receiving the PPE, so the protection that they needed to keep them safe. So while they were taking care of their patients, they themselves were at high risk if they didn't get their support, and they were not getting PPEs. And I remember all of that was happening. Then George Floyd in America, that just on a global level, it created all different racial injustice. For me, that was a turning point for me because
which was great. I mean, I'm just, of course, I'm not glad that the incident happened, but I'm glad that it just came on everybody's faces because it was time.
It was time.
It was time.
And in some sense, it was time for me to hear it because I spent all of my life conforming. I need to be good in my career. I need to be the best that I can be. But I was putting myself in a box because of what society wanted of me. I wasn't stepping into who I was and who I naturally have. And it was when I started being in those spaces and owning my own experience of racial injustice, the racial injustice that I was seeing around me, because my role put me in that position where I had to lead this agenda, which meant I own it myself. And I realized, and let's just say I had a deep breakdown and reflection at that time.
Solving the puzzle. That's where
solving the puzzle. That's where I started solving the puzzle. Because I started thinking about how when the 7/7 bombs happened in London, I was in America. And my surname is Hussein. And I was in
I
the
remember
taxi.
you telling this story.
And this for me, it was like I was so afraid of someone finding out I was a Muslim, and because I don't physically look like a Muslim.
I remember those times. Same.
Yeah, well, I was so afraid, and I remember being in JFK airport, and I was the extra checks that was being done, and I didn't even think about it. I just came to the UK because of that fear. I was so scared. I changed my name.
Wow.
I changed my surname. And the reason why I'm kind of giving that story is because when COVID happened and I was supporting my team, supporting the workforce and supporting the white leaders on really encouraging them to have conversations about discrimination, because they were being led by me because they weren't confident about how they best support the organization. So I had to embrace my experiences, and I was forced to step into it. And when I started stepping into that, I remembered that story about my experience, and I was so upset. And I went to my manager, a white manager, and I said, "This is too much." And then I started sharing that example. She started crying, and then I laughed, like, "Why are you crying?" Because it's my story. Why are you crying? And I changed my name. And then she said, "You changed your identity." She said,
I was about to cry myself.
She goes, "You changed your identity because you were too afraid." And it was when she
that
said
you are
that.
you.
Yes.
That's very powerful. But I also connect with that because I experienced almost the same thing at one point. When I went to America. I was freaking out because of all the extra checks and how they, because they saw that, and I don't even practice Islamic anything. I'm not a religious individual, but on my Turkish passport, Muslim it's written Muslim, and I was freaking out because of all the way, and that's like, I can connect with that, and then what happened?
Oh my God, so when I saw her cry, and the fact that
it's
she's a white,
it's a big deal
for me, seeing it visibly, and then when she said that back to me, I actually went and spoke to my sisters, and I said to them, "This is what happened." And they turned around and said, "Why do you think we have not changed our surname?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, and then they said, "We didn't change because they've gotten married and they've kept Hussein." And I said, "Why?" I thought it was just a choice you made. No, because Dad was really upset. And when they and this was, by the way, years later, because I changed my name in my early 20s and COVID hit. I think I was in my late 30s. And that for me, I just had to sit back and think, wow. I have really conformed. To be safe, to progress in my career, I just put my head down and did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, it
I
has
didn't
its benefits
realize.
and drawbacks. Of course,
Exactly.
it has its benefits.
It
It's not
definitely
only a
has.
bad thing, or
Definitely not a bad
yeah.
thing, but I definitely, let's just say I stepped into who I was. I embraced who I was, and that includes the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when I stepped into who I was, I started creating huge shifts in the organization, but also I was getting regional and national attention about the work I was doing.
Wow.
And that made me think, actually, I've got something here. It's not just I'm
Yeah.
good at my job. Actually, there's a unique approach I have. And that's what led me to create Socially
Beautiful.
Inspired. So it's really a journey
Beautiful,
of my
yeah.
life and owning
Yeah.
it. So so that's
it's
me.
it's very inspiring, because I do help humans in general to go deeper into who they are
Yeah.
and embrace themselves totally. So that's kind of like my biggest mission in the world, to really
Nice.
help humans be authentic,
Yeah.
be who they are, because I know the power of that.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like, what I experience is sometimes, like, especially in the Turkish community, Turkish people coming to UK or Europe, having a hard time speaking, not being confident about speaking English or German or whatever, because they have the accent. And it's like, whenever you're not comfortable and when you're ashamed about that accent or whatever, yes, and then everything.
Yeah.
But whenever you are free of it and you're just, this is me, and then it becomes a gift.
Yeah.
Because actually having that accent is sweet in a way. It has its benefits, and
I think, by me, not I think, I know, it's interesting, because I'm reflecting as we're having this conversation, and I'm thinking, I'm saying I think is because I'm still stepping into who I am.
Yeah.
I did the big thing, but we're always growing, and I'm always learning, and I'm always experiencing difficulties and hesitation. But I'm so grateful for that moment.
Yeah.
And I can see the benefits like now, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. And what early assumptions about impact, community, or change did you have to test?
It comes back to that conversation about, actually, we need to step into who we are. And I am
That's the only way,
God-fearing.
right?
It's the only way. Like, I am God. Yes, I'm a Muslim, and I'm proud of being a Muslim, but I'm my Muslim. I'm God-fearing. I'm very spiritual, and I've been created for a particular purpose. And if we step into whatever that looks like, that's the impact.
Yeah.
And for me,
that's the meaning.
Yeah. And I think that, I do get quite emotional when I talk about that, because I'm thinking, we don't need anything extravagant. By you being that person, like, the impact is amazing.
So powerful.
Yeah. And I think the reason why for me that's big and I get emotional about it is because I spent all of my life questioning, why am I even living? Why am I even here? And it was, again, COVID, because of everything that was happening at that time. Some people were coming up to me and telling me about the work that I was doing. And I was just doing the work because it was important and I was being myself. And they were sharing how, because of something I did, it got them to reflect on who they were and what they wanted to do. And some people were making decisions they wouldn't have made. And when I started seeing the amazing things they were doing, one particular person who's amazing, but she has a long-term condition, and her long-term disability was holding her back. She decided not to hold back, and she applied for that job. She got the job. So not only did she get the financial benefit, but she grew as a person, her confidence grew. And I didn't do anything. I just created the space, but I realized that little impact. So for me, it's about, actually, it's not extravagant. It's just being you, because that creates impact, that creates community, and that is the social job we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and that also inspires people to be themselves, and that's the biggest gift.
Yeah.
And before launching, what was the biggest risk you took emotionally or strategically, or?
Oh God. So I'm going to go back to the whole COVID thing.
The reason why I'm asking this is because, purpose-proven platforms often struggle with monetization, as you know, or sustainability. So, that's probably the risk you were taking. One of the risks.
No, it was definitely a big factor, because I think I had to step into vulnerability at that time, but that vulnerability meant that actually I had to say bye-bye to my full-time job. It got to a point where your purpose becomes so big that...
And loud.
Yeah. and it actually gets you to stop. And I realized that I was being affected. My health and well-being was affected because my purpose was shouting at me, and what was holding me back was the material aspect of I need a full-time job. And when I said bye-bye to my full-time job without a job to go to, I didn't have nothing, and I'm the main earner. I have 2 children, and my youngest at that time was only 5 months old. And let's just say that circumstances and that purpose was so loud, I said bye-bye to my full-time job. I worked my notice, I left, I set up Socially Inspired, but for some reason, and I don't know how, the universe provides, even though as I was setting up my business, somehow money was coming in through contract works because people were aware of the work that I had done. They were coming to me and asking me to do bits and pieces. So it naturally grew. So for me, the risk was just letting go and surrendering. And it was hard.
To who you are. I know.
So
and first, I mean, that happened with me many, many years ago, because I was trained as an architecture, and then I decided, I was trained as an architecture, and then I decided to, shift towards behavioral sciences, human psychology, and all that, and then became, spent a couple of years in my trainings again, starting from scratch, and losing, in my parents' eyes, for example, losing a lot of time, because I was then 29, and I was like, I stopped and I started training again, and I started educating myself again, and it's tough. It's tough to, I think, when we are clear, because that probably happened to you. I see it in you. It's like when we're so clear on our purpose and the path is just there, it's usually very hard to express it to other people and explain it to other people. That was like, for me, it was very hard for me to explain it to my dad, my mom, my friends. And then at that time I was also going through a divorce, because I saw that wasn't serving my purpose. Everything, but then it's just
scary, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But when you can let go, it flows.
It flows. And of course, it doesn't mean that once you surrender and you let go, you're not going to have another point in your life where you have to surrender. But the nice thing is, because that I did it once, I always go back. And I always have this motto that if you make a decision out of fear, recognize that fear and work through it, because we have to keep surrendering. And I'm definitely glad that I did that at that point. It wasn't easy, but again, it was the best thing I did.
Yeah, you did. And how long did it take you to fully design Socially Inspired to balance mission and viability?
So I created Socially Inspired in 2021. I was too afraid to launch it to the world
until
a whole year went by.
Okay.
And
so you're someone who waits for the perfect.
Well, I think it was so personal to me that I didn't know, is this really a business? So that monetizing, there was such a social element to what I was doing, and it was very based on ethics, based on morale, and it's a people consultancy. So people consultancy is commercial, but I was bringing a social lens to it. And how is that going to make money? So I just felt as though I'm not being serious. So I just was a bit afraid.
And how did it make money?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because it is making money.
It is making money.
Because my first year, without advertise, well, actually, first year I didn't do anything. The second year, I officially told my network, this is me, this is what and in my first year, I 3 digits the business earned. I didn't advertise. It was just my network, and it's because they knew who I was. So that it was through me I realized that there is something in this. It can make money. So actually it was in terms of when I look at my lines of my business, there's 2 elements. One, investigations. A lot of people in a workplace have grievances, complaints, issues that are not being resolved, unfairly being put through a disciplinary process or a performance issue because they're either misunderstood or they're not given the support. And these are the things that I, like I said, from my experiences. However, the decisions that are made through that process are not culturally intelligent. And especially if you're from a race perspective, you have an ethnicity, it's unfair in terms of there's a lot of bias in that decision making. So investigations is one arm of what I do in terms
and not understanding. I mean, because basically what you're saying, my point of view would be, as an entrepreneur, a founder, also a CEO of multiple companies, I think we don't have the time and focus to just one by one,
Yeah.
or anybody in the team, even HR.
Yes.
They don't have the
They don't.
time and depth
No.
to just listen to each individual.
Yes.
And those are individuals, and that's what I think the system is lacking. It's like they are
That's it.
individuals, they
Yeah.
are humans.
They're humans.
They need to be listened to.
Yes.
We need people, not just HR, because HR doesn't have that time. It's like we need hours and hours and hours maybe to listen
Yes.
that individual.
And
I
ask the
think
right-
that's where you're coming into the picture, and that's very
Exactly.
much needed, especially
Yeah.
the bigger the company is.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my businesses. The bigger the company grows or gets, it's like people just the employees
They become numbers,
they are not
don't they?
numbers. And also it's like it's sad when I put myself in their shoes, them feeling unlistened to. And as a business owner, like at one time when I was very young, I was leading a local TV station. I was head of a local TV station we owned with my ex-husband, and I had around 89 people in my team. And I remember, outside of daily work, I had to, because of the value I give to humans, I had to listen to each and every employee's whatever happening in their lives. And I remember being so exhausted because HR or other people, it wasn't enough. They wanted someone to talk to, and that's kind of like listening and being truly interested in people. That's my thing, that's my gift. So they would come to my room, and I remember staying at the office until 10 p.m. in the evening, listening to them, just listening, and telling them we value as a imagine vice president of the company, but it's like because it's not enough, and that's very much needed, and that's so much lacking in the system.
It's lacking, and I'm really glad you mentioned the HR, because I'm a HR professional, and I was seeing it around the approach that HR, and I hear you, like HR, they've got all the other priorities.
They can't have that time.
They don't have the time, but God forgive me saying this, but I think HR professionals have got a lot to learn, because the way HR professionals are, the direction of travel is there. For me, it feels like they are one step away from being a lawyer. So their approach is policies, procedures, let's follow the policy. It's not human.
Yeah, they're saying you're an object.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind HR, human resources, is really looking at that human element. So we've gone away from that as a profession. We've gone away from it. And then when you're making these really important decisions on whether to dismiss someone, whether to performance manage them so they lose their job, what's the impact on that individual? They're bringing money in for their family. They may not understanding the needs of what your ask is. Maybe there's a conflict and they want to be understood, but yet these decisions are being made, and the consequences, that person might lose a job. But what if we, in those moments, really listen, ask the right questions, and really get to the root cause of what is happening? Because and if there is a conflict, from a human perspective, let's navigate through that so there's a win-win on both situations. And it's possible. It's possible to end contracts with people in a very human way. But at the moment, what I'm seeing is that contracts are ending, and there's hurt and there's conflict. And unfortunately, bias also creeps in to those decisions. And racial inequalities are existing within our workplays. Homophobic decisions are being made. And that's where, financial
and maybe those people, I mean, on the other side of the picture, I think everything in the world is with good intentions, and I think even those people who make those decisions, homophobic decisions, they might even not be aware of it.
Yes.
That they're making the homophobic decision.
Nefsha, what you've said, because I've got my investigation arm, and then I've got my education and awareness arm, where we do a lot of leadership development, cultural intelligence development for exec boards, senior leaders, team away days.
Really, they might have some experiences before, and then they're not probably even aware
Exactly.
that they're making those decisions with that experience as being projected into the future.
Exactly. And into their decision making, how they are managing and leading. So from a monetary perspective, to make this social sort of my purpose in terms of this company, for it to be socially inspired and commercially sort of viable, we've got the investigation arm, which is very unique in its approach. And then you've got the education, learning and development arm. And those are running coherently, sort of parallel to one another, because you do need the education, because a lot of people are they're not aware,
they're
and it's not there.
Yeah, of course, just like the policeman in like New York airport who is just investigating you because on your passport it's written Muslim. They just see that, and that's like a projection, past experience, and a project. It's the same thing. It's like they're not even aware of it.
Exactly the same thing. But yes.
Yeah. And how do you measure real impact beyond metrics?
So for me, it's more three levels from an individual perspective. So ultimately, socially inspired is about creating behavioral change, whether it's investigations or the learning and development side. So how I measure impact, it's as simple as if they attend a training. Of course, you want that to be good, and then you want to walk. You want to be able to have the participants walk away with a learning. But for me, it's actually that behavioural change. Have I been able to get them into a space, create a psychological safe space for them to explore a different perspective? So when they walk out, they will remember the moment, remember the learning, and make a different decision. And that for me is something that I really aim for in all of our sort of development sessions. In terms of investigations, our investigations are so detailed. I'm a very detailed person, and I make sure that both we comply with our sort of ACAS guidelines and our sort of rules and regulations in terms of how we should conduct a fair investigation. But I do it in a way that actually it needs to be very evidence-based, but very really reflects the person's experience, so they feel heard, and then the organization also understands truly what is happening. And I think with that, if you really make it very clear as part of that investigation exactly what is happening, then that creates that sort of open space to make an informed decision. So going back to what you were saying about how do you measure it by the value add in that for the individual, but also for the outcomes for the organization. Because instead of them arguing or instead of them managing a employee relations matter that might take years, through an investigation, you get to the root cause straight away, because the investigations are done transparent and clear way that you're able to then know everything that's happening. You understand the root cause, and then you can start resolving the problem rather than spending years creating harm but not addressing the issue. So for me, it has a commercial benefit, but it also has that human element, because people need to feel heard when they're going through such a difficult process.
I think that's the biggest challenge.
Somehow, naturally, I'm good at it, and I've been able to create socially inspired. The challenge is getting my associates to also think differently in how we engage with individuals that are coming from a perspective that we may not understand.
And who are your customers? Are they enterprises, small businesses, both?
So I've spent a long time in the NHS health service. So a lot of the clients I work with is NHS. So it's everything from hospitals to health trusts, primary care, social care. I've been able to work with some really good national charities as well, which is great. And it's a lot of organisations that have that civil service, society, as part of their service, as part of their sort of business model. So public organisations are my most sort of highly regarded clientele. However, when I think about it, what I'm doing, I'm not looking at just public. I'm asking all organisations to be socially conscious, and that includes the private sector.
Yes, private sector as well.
Because I never shared, actually, I was a banker.
I mean, public sector, I think, is much more aware on these topics.
Exactly.
Private sector isn't. It's because private sector is very much focused on profit. And I have spoken with a lot of employees, and I think that's why people who are in the public sector are more happy. I'm talking about employees.
Yes.
But in the
You're right.
private sector, because in the private sector, I'm not talking about all enterprises or all companies, of course, but, certain even C-level individuals tend to see people as like numbers, and that gets, projected into the company.
Definitely. I'll give you a story actually, because I don't think you'll know this about
And
me.
people feel used and abused.
They
And
do. They do. I don't know if I ever mentioned to you. I was a banker, Islamic.
No. Okay.
So when I studied as a law in early 20s, I came back from New York, waiting for my results, and somehow I don't know what happened. Like the universe tells us where we go, we just need to follow. But somehow, an Arab bank contacted me. They headhunted me and said, actually, we want to grow our Islamic finance arm. We're looking for a female because they understand that a lot of Muslims, the woman holds the purse strings. We need a woman as part of our team. Can you come on board? I said bye-bye to law, embraced Islamic finance, and I was part of a team to grow the Islamic finance in the UK. And it was a very male-dominated industry.
Of course, finance.
So
yes.
yeah, and like you said, it was all about profit. And I remember being in a male-dominated organization, and I wasn't happy.
No,
I wasn't happy. I did what I needed to do, and I did it well, but I understand everything about, exactly what you said. It is all about performance, even with the way they...
And it's not only bad, it has its benefits, of course. And then it might lack some human feminine side.
Yeah, but it's that balance, isn't it? And where we know in society, it's very, we need to embrace that soft side of being a woman. We need that in our business world, because that's how we're going to.
Yeah.
So how can the private sector embrace this? Because there is a way. There is a way. We've just got to find and be open to it. So maybe, hopefully, the ambition is reaching out to my private clients, wherever they may be. So that's the aspiration, but let's see.
Great. And what has been the most difficult operational lesson in scaling a Mission First initiative?
So you can imagine, 2022 is where I really started working in this, but I've literally done this. Like it's been me, it's a one-man band. And I've been grateful to have all the clients and serving them. But as part of, like I said, upscaling, I need associates that are aligned. I want a certain level of standards, because we are very clear about our purpose. We're very values driven. We are very clear about what we're here to do, and, we're here to serve. My associates need to be aligned with that. And so for me, it's about growing my associate pool. And just growing as a business that are very much aligned, because I'm not here to tick a box. And going back to what we were saying, I'm not here to grow because I want more profits. No. It has to grow organically, and it has to be socially driven.
Yeah, you're an impact founder.
And that has to, which means my associate pool has to represent that and be aligned with what we're here to do, not just in words, but really embody it. And that sometimes is a bit of a
tough.
Yes. And then the other aspect is, oh my God, like if you're going to grow as a business, especially with my aspirations that I have, getting that cash flow right.
No, it's not.
It's
I know.
not easy.
It's not,
but so I would say those are the biggest challenges. Trying to manage the two.
And you're still doing great. That's
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I know.
It's exhausting.
As a serial entrepreneur, multiple businesses, I know it myself. But I think that's kind of like, that's the fun part. I don't think we would want the easy way. It's like, that's the fun part, because it's kind of like that's what grows us. I think being an entrepreneur is a self-mastery journey, because you take full responsibility of your team, finances, growth, everything. At the end of the day, you are fully responsible.
I know. That's scary.
That needs self-mastery, and that also, I think, teaches us self-mastery. And
that's true. That's true.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is true. And still navigating through that.
Yeah, and because we said self-mastery, let's come to some personal questions.
Right.
How do you stay resilient when impact takes longer than expected to materialize, or things don't go the way you expected?
A lot of people say we need to be clear about our why, because then you can always go back to your why. I have a different positioning. I go back
I
to my
somehow
purpose.
know
Yeah.
what you're gonna say.
What's my purpose? Because I
Yeah.
actually think I wasn't living before, because I was just moving and doing things. Whereas now I am so clear about my purpose that when things get difficult, and they do all the time, it's not easy, but I know why I'm doing it. And that helps me
Yeah.
to keep going, but it also helps me to just reframe what is happening in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And that I must admit, and I didn't appreciate it, but I'm a naturally, I can take a step back and reflect. I'm very impatient, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Very impatient because I need things to happen like now. But I do see the art of reflection, and understanding my purpose helps me reflect and honor and appreciate that the journey has been what it's been, and there's learning. And if not now, it will happen, because I'm very clear about where I need to be and where I want to be and where I want Socially Inspired to be. So I think in terms of like going back to myself, it's grounding myself. I'm not great at it because of my impatient element, but I have realized that those moments where I do sit back and reflect and go into myself and really appreciate and be humbled about that journey, it allows me to kind of ground who I am and
Yes.
what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier
It is.
when I
It
have
is.
that.
And it kind of like takes a level of self-mastery, I think, to do that. Because, to be able to do that, you need to first take full responsibility of what's happening. And I think,
Yeah.
I mean, in general, humans, I think, are great at owning their successes, owning their success stories, but we are not perfect and great at owning our failures. And when things go wrong, I think owning that
Yeah.
and being, I am responsible, whatever went wrong, and it's not that it's wrong, but whatever went the way you didn't expect to, it's like, I am responsible. And next time, for that not to happen next time, I'm going to learn my lesson. So I'm going to sit down, dive in, reflect, and truly understand, okay, what happened here?
Yeah.
Who was I?
Yeah.
And what was I doing? And how was I thinking? And, why did that happen? And then and that's why I say, solving the puzzle, then you start solving the puzzle, then you start understanding. So I think that's a lovely gift you have, being able to step back.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting, and thank you, because it's interesting, because when I go into that reflection, as you were talking and kind of relaying it back to me, I was thinking, when I do that, I start thinking about, oh, I had signs, I didn't listen, because I was just going. And when I go into that deep reflection, I think about, actually, if I was a lot more present in those moments and in those decisions, actually, I should have gone with my gut and my intuition at that time, but I didn't. And I'm constantly reminded in those reflection moments how we get signs all the time.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
But are we actually
If
open?
we did stop and dive deeper into,
Yeah.
and if we had those times to, just leave, let go.
Yes. Yes.
Just step back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Rethink.
And it's interesting, because it's not that I needed to step back in those moments. And my lesson in life, or at this moment in time, is when my intuition comes knocking, it's asking me to step in and say something, but I don't, because I don't want to upset someone. And that's my lesson. If I feel something, I need to step in and say it, rather than, oh no, I want to keep the peace, or I want to satisfy a client, or I want to satisfy my associates. I have to own it. And where things go wrong is when I don't own it in that moment, because I'm trying to please other people. And that's my current lessons that I'm learning.
Yeah, lovely.
And so, yes, so let's see.
Yeah, it was a lovely conversation, a lovely chat flowing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it was very valuable. I learned a lot about you, your mission, and also in general life. And there's one final question I would like to ask you. What advice would you give to aspiring social entrepreneurs trying to turn purpose into scalable ventures?
Oh God, this is so cliche. Your purpose. First, I know trying to identify your purpose can be a challenge in itself. So my ask, I'm going to go a step back. My ask would be, or my invite to people is, identify your purpose. And that means going back into reflect on your life and your experiences, and understand what it's telling you, because that's
Yeah.
where the purpose sits. Once you have your purpose, then start thinking about how you can then step into it,
Yeah.
and it will materialize. Hold the intention that you want it to be a business and look out, because options will come. Well,
Lovely.
it's something
Yeah.
I'm teaching my daughter. Energy goes where the energy flows.
Yes.
So
Yeah, when you're centered and fully focused on your purpose, it
yeah,
happens by itself in a way.
be clear about your purpose and then
Yeah.
be open, and it will come. Just trust the process.
Lovely. Thank you, Mehvish.
Thank
It was
you.
lovely having you here. And thanks to everyone who's listening to us on Spotify and watching us on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and Spotify account. I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.